what we're going to talk about today is the characteristics of the 450 Mercedes here. I picked this one first because it's the oldest, it's 40 years old. When I had a 300 SEL years ago, 6.3 it was, I used to think there was something wrong with the car. And in those days there was no computers or anything, so there was no reference. But when I accelerated the car, it would leap in the air and shudder and take off like a rocket. And it was the shuddering that I thought, gee, there's something wrong with this car. And finally I found a coffee table book, and lo and behold, the author, who did a very good write-up, he must have driven these cars, and explained that it was perfectly normal and one of the characteristics of the car. And since I've had this 450, I've really not had another car to compare it with, another 450 that is. So I'm sort of happy with this one now. I think I've got it right. So I can talk about this car and how it relates to other 450 cars. Give other people ideas of how their car should be performing. And so here we go, I'm going to talk about the characteristics of a 450 SLC. What I thought I'd do is a quick run through of what I know of how the engine works. And we all know at the back of the car it's electric fuel pump and the filter and other minor items to get the fuel up to the engine. I've taken the air filter off so we can see what's going on here. Here's your fuel distributor, and down in here on this air plate is a counterbalance. I'll just show you the counterbalance. There's a counterweight here and the air plate there, and when you open the throttle down in the car, it draws air into the intake manifold, pulls this plate down, and at this point here there's a pin. It's like a little shaft, and up here it goes into the fuel distributor, and the piece, unfortunately I haven't got one, has slots in it. So when this goes up and down, the slots increase to let more fuel into the fuel distributor, which runs through to your fuel injectors. Double Dutch, I suppose. Back to the engine. Here's your throttle linkages. As you can see, it comes down, well, goes down there actually, right down into there. So what I'll do, I'll just open the air intake here, and you should be able to see a butterfly valve, if you want it opens like that, down in there. I'll just get a torch. So you can see down inside there, there's that little flap, I call it a butterfly flap or something. You can see that opens when you throttle, pulls down this plate, which I've got my light holding down, and when you throttle, it pulls that plate down, and the counterbalance moves up and down here. Right. Now the major thing with these engines is the starting, and we'll do the warm-up valve. Okay, here's the warm-up valve. Inside it is a thermal strip, and it has 12 volts applied to it. When you put the ignition on, it warms it up. I suppose it's hence why it's called a warm-up valve. I had trouble with this one. The voltage wasn't working, mainly because of a broken negative connection, and the car won't run. It just goes completely haywire. So this is very, very important, and that's why I have these new wires here, so I know what parts of the car I've had to replace a bit of wire on. It is also regulates your fuel pressure. Over here, well, I'll show you this, a little diagram of the warm-up regulator. This is the thermal strip inside the warm-up regulator, and it has a coil around it. That's for the 12 volts to warm it up, and it moves up and down here to adjust your fuel pressure. It has a little adjustment screw on this side here, but the adjustments really are minimal. Okay, over here we've got the auxiliary air valve, and it runs from the temperature of the water in the block underneath it. I shall show you a broken one. You can see the sensor here senses the water temperature, and inside it has a base and a spring, and a piston moves up and down. You can see the slot there where the air would go through that hole. This is a broken piece of piston, and it goes up and down by engine temperature. Over here we have a idle screw, the amount of idle, that's how much air goes into the engine here. And over here we have a cold start valve. The cold start valve works off the temperature sensor in the engine block here. The temperature is set at 15 degrees Fahrenheit, which is bugger all. And so when you start the engine, because even on a hot day the block is cold, so the cold start injector goes straight away. This will be in a position to allow max air for the cold start, and your warm-up regulator comes in, and once the engine heats up it turns down. Very interesting. So when you start the engine here, she kicks off at about 1100 revs, maybe up to 1200. Nothing you can do about it. The only adjustments we have on the engine that we can do is adjust the idle mixture here, and that's the idle mixture, not the running mixture. You can't adjust that. It does that here with the air plate. So you got that with a 2mm Allen key. You can adjust your revs on this screw here, and a little nut here, but does minimal adjustment anyway. So you really have no control, even though this engine is 100% mechanical. Up the back here of the vacuum lines, we've got a little valve here, and that's for the vacuum advance on the distributor. All these vacuum lines around here, when I got the car, were not there. It ran like a dog, believe you me. There's another little sensor down here, the blue one. That's for the, you can see mine's totally disconnected down there. That's for the smog pump, which we won't talk about. Another one over here. This one's this sensor here, sorry, over here. That is for the EGR valve over here, exhaust gas recirculation. And that's about it. All these vacuum lines up the back here do your central locking, you know, your doors, your petrol cap and your boot. You only get about half a dozen goes. They also do the flaps for your heater and everything behind the dash. That's the heater valve here. And that was that was a problem when I got the car first too. So they're all working. You don't want a vacuum leak. That's number one. Anyway, let's see how a short description of how the engine goes. I might add that I'm going to start it shortly, that since I've mucked around, pushed that plate and everything, it might start a bit rough. This car has a Bosch K-tronic fuel injection system on it, and the block is cast iron and the head's alloy. I'm just banging the air filter back on, and I thought I should mention this, that this here is a temperature sensor for the cooling fan at the front, electric one there. And interesting enough, it's set at 100 degrees Fahrenheit, so it won't turn the cooling fan on until it reaches 100. It's quite high. The thing that drew me to these cars is I always wanted one because I just love the shape. They've really got lovely lines that it's sort of timeless. I mean, you wouldn't know this thing was 40 years old. There you go, down the front there. It's amazing, isn't it? I wish I had one when I was 40 years old, because you need to be younger for these sort of cars. The doors are very heavy. They're quite large and heavy. When you're and you've got to climb into them. And I noticed the other day an old guy was selling one, he's 75, and he said him and his wife just had trouble getting in them anymore. Well, my wife has a bit of trouble getting into our one. The dash and everything is quite basic, which is great. I mean, you got a knob there, which I changed the other week for the fan. That does the fan in here for the heating and cooling. A switch here for the air compressor for the air conditioner. A knob here just does the speaker balance for the radio. And slides air up and air down and heating. That's it. Marvellous. Who wants all the other bullshit? We've got cruise control, of course, over here. That's wonderful. The only thing that's not working, well, there's two things not working on this car, which I don't really care less about. The clock, and the clock works, but always shows the wrong time, even though I set it, so it's running out. And the trip meter. When I bought the car, I thought, wonderful, it's only done 285,000. I didn't know that the trip meter wasn't working, but who cares less? We can live without that rubbish. The sunroof and everything works. And like I was saying about the doors, when you park on the camber of the road, you've got to push this door open against the weight of the road falling down. It's quite heavy. Anyway, we'll start the car and take it for a run. Okay, I have the actual original owner's manual for this car, and it says when you start the engine, slightly or slowly depress the accelerator. Here goes. And there we're going. And you can see it's creeping up 1,000, say 1,100 revs we're doing. Now what will happen when the temperature hits 15 degrees, which won't take long, the cold start valve will cut out, and as the temperature climbs up to running temperature, the auxiliary air valve will start closing. So we'll see how long it takes. Now this car only has a little 4.5 litre V8, but this car really wants to go. This car weighs 2,129 kilos or something. It was as much as a Toyota Land Cruiser or a large four-wheel drive. And So the steering, even though it's power steering, is quite heavy. If you're only idling, that is. It's beautiful once you're driving. Like I said, this car wants to go. Also, it loves the gas. Loves a bit of juice. And you got to watch the speedo, because she creeps up all the time. You just look away and you picked up an extra 20 or 10 to 20 kilometers an hour. And you're going to hear my little creak as we turn this corner. That bad, really. Anyway, I'm going to pull in down here and we'll look at the revs. So we've done a little trip around the corner. The temperature's come up. Can you see it a little bit there? And we're doing about 800 idling and 800 revs, but we're in gear. So if I put it out of gear, yeah, down to 1,000. So I'd say the cold start valve is cut out, but we still need a bit more temperature for the revs to drop right down. When the revs are down and I put it in gear, she'll be idling around 500. As you can see, it's around 7. So the other problem is when I run the air conditioner, every year I've got to turn the revs up slightly to compensate for the air conditioner, to the drops. I'll put the air conditioner on now, see what happens. Run the air. The other day we got stuck in traffic with the air conditioner going, and the temperature came up to 90 degrees over here, and but the revs dropped so low that the engine, you think it was going to stall, and so it's a bugger, isn't it? I wait till the engine's warmed up and running before I adjust it for the air conditioner, but when it gets extreme, the revs drop right down more. And as we're sitting here, you can see the revs dropping down. Anyway, I'm running out of things to say about the old car. It goes, it's nice, smooth drive. The other thing I should mention is that this car eats speed humps. They don't, you can whack over them, they don't make much difference at all. It must be something to do with the wheelbase or something. There we go, over one, boom. You know, other cars I've seen slow right down for the speed humps. We'll go another one here. Nothing. The other thing is, this car doesn't have ABS brakes. Not that it matters. They seem to work quite fine. They're not super sensitive or anything. It's the amount of pressure you put your foot on it, but it stops. That's the main thing. I had a lady jump out in front of me once, and they work quite fine. Didn't run her over. Here we go. Well, we're back in the garage, and I'll just show you how the car starts, and this is how it'll start for the rest of the day until that cold start like I just did a while ago. There you go. And that's how it's always going to start for the rest of the day. As you can see, the revs now are about 800. If I put it in gear, dropping down there at about 600 or so now, and she'll run around 500 RPM. Well, it's up to 80 degrees now, so we're on running temperature. The auxiliary air valve and everything is shut down, cold start shut down, and that's it for the day. Okay, that's a little talk on my 450. I hope it helps other people that have 450s to do a little comparison. They are a heavy car. They do have a bit of heavy steering when you're parking them. The doors, when you kick them open on a camber or a hill, a bit of a pain. But other than that, it's like a little tank. Okay, thanks. See you on.